Today, we're going to learn how to properly navigate Backagent and also how to submit your transaction. So the difference between Backagent and Transaction Desk is that on Transaction Desk, that's where you fill out your documents, where you get them to get signed and all that good stuff. But on Backagent, this is where you have your resources, your learning resources, and a lot of the sample contracts and things like that. I'm going to show you here. But by law, our brokerage is required to keep all of the documents in the transaction. Well, not all of them, but certain ones for 4 years. And so this is the software that we use to make sure that we keep everything together. So I'm going to show you guys where you can find your resources first. So we're going to go over here and we're going to click on Learn. And here you'll see where it says Learning Resources. So you're going to click that and you'll find all of this. So you want to click on the document and you'll see Buffini, which is a real estate course that Kiani bought a while ago. You have your documents about buyers, you have your commercial real estate resources, etc., etc. And here you even have email signature essentials. And in here you can find your consumer protection, your IABS, the Kiani Realty logo. And again, you have your marketing, you have other learning resources. So when you click on transactions, this is where it's going to take you. Now, if you don't have any active transactions or any filed transactions, they're not going to show up here. It's just going to be blank. But in this case, if you do have active transactions, they will be on the left. Active means that they could have been approved, but we haven't received the check for it. So they don't become filed until we receive the funds. And I'm going to show you how to create a new transaction and how to submit it and how to make your funding request. So what you want to do is go over here where there's a @ sign. Now, me personally, whenever I start working with a client and I have the IABS and the tenant rep sign, I already go ahead and start my transaction just because I like to keep my things updated, just so I don't have to rush and go back and do this last minute. So what you're going to do is you're going to press add. Category of transaction are you doing? So here we have residential, whether it's a buy or sale, or rent. If it's residential, this is what you're going to choose. Then it gives you the choice for apartments. So with apartments that are, it's a managed building, this is what you're going to choose. And you have commercial. If you refer the client to another state, for example, and you are receiving a referral fee for that transaction. But in this case, we're going to do residential buyer side. So I'm going to go ahead and select residential. It's going to ask sale or sell listing or lease listing. So if you are doing a buy or sell transaction, it's the first one. If any type of lease, you're going to do the second one. So we're going to select the first one. And then it's going to ask you, where would you like to start the transaction? So like I mentioned, I like to do it from the start. When I have an IABS and a tenant or buyer rep signed, I start my transaction. But let's say you've already, started showing, or you already have a subject property and you're writing up the contract, you can choose when to start. But here's a disclaimer. If you are closing on a property, so buy or sale, and you need a CDA sent to the title company so that you can get paid there, you have to submit this transaction no later than 3 days before the closing date for us to send over the CDA. And if you have a sale listing, if you're listing a property for sale, you have to press start as soon as you have the listing agreement signed and the IABS. You have to put those two in Backagent. That has always been a rule, but we haven't been enforcing it. And this is very important because how are we going to know that you have permission to list this house? It's a very big liability for us. So for this example, I'm going to press start. It's going to ask you what party you're representing. We're representing the buyer. Then it's going to ask you who is the buyer, and you're going to add your client. I'm going to do John Doe. And as you can see, I already have John Doe as a client. This is actually me. And I'm going to select contact, and I'm going to create the transaction. So then this is what you see after you've created a transaction. We are in the start, we are in the beginning of the transaction, so we're on start. And as you can see, there are some things that are orange. Those are things that are required now, right? So 2 items required now is when did you begin working with your client? I always put the date when the either the listing agreement or the tenant/buyer representation starts. For this example, we're just going to say the 7th. You're going to pick the date and you're going to save it. And then it's going to ask, will another party get a referral fee for this transaction? And we're going to say no. So for example, if an agent from California referred you a client and they're going to get their percentage for referrals, you would say yes. So then the rest of this you can leave alone for now, right? We don't have a set property, although some of this stuff you can still answer. But for now, we're going to move on to documents. Let's see what's required. And as you can see here, it says required now, because guys, by law, when you even talk about a subject property with clients or customers or whoever, you are required to get the information about brokerage services initialed by them. So it's going to require it now. And as you can see, the buyer representation agreement says recommended. But I always like to input these documents, even if it says recommended, just because why not? I mean, you have it. Why not just put it in there, right? So we're going to go ahead and put in the IABS. So you're going to go to the right and press options, and you're going to press attach document. And I'm going to do it from my computer. So I'm going to upload a file. Now, you always want to only put executed documents in Backagent, meaning they have to be signed by whoever they need to be signed by. But since this is an example and this client is hypothetical, I'm just going to put the blank IABS in here, but you would save it to your computer, make sure it's signed and initialed by your client. You're just going to click it and it's going to pop up like this. And you get to select the pages that you want to add. In this case, this file only has one page, so I'm going to add the page. And you can also look at the page, at the file that you've selected, and make sure it's the correct one. Again, you want to make sure that this is initial. This is an example, so this is not initial. And then once you're done, you're going to press Create Document, and you're going to save and quit. So now, as you can see, it says on file. We have our IABS on file, but I'm also going to add the buyer representation agreement. As you can see in my John Doe folder, I have the representation agreement. I'm going to select it. And it's the short form. Again, this is not signed because this is a mock example, but please make sure that this is signed by your clients. This is only executed documents we're adding in here. You're going to create and save document and quit. So now you have these two documents in, which is awesome. But the part where you get to contract and post-closing, obviously, if we don't have a set property, we do not have a contract. So you want to make sure that you are aware that this all takes time. So now let's kind of skip over, right? Let's say that our buyers saw a property and they love it. We put in an offer, our offer got accepted, and let's just skip straight to the end, okay? So you're going to go back to summary, and you want to go phase by phase. But in this case, we already have done the showing. We're going to go straight to contract. And as you can see, a bunch of stuff will turn orange, and it's a bunch of stuff that we need to do. Now that we have all of this information, we are going to set the property. And this is going to make your life a lot easier, okay? It's going to tell you exactly what documents you need for this transaction. So what you want to do is go to the left where it says John Doe Buyer, and you're just going to click on it. And it's going to bring you here where it says set property, and you're going to press that. And the easiest way to do it is through the MLS number. So you're going to press search MLS, search by MLS number, and paste your MLS number in there. You're going to press search. And as you can see, this is the listing that we are using for this example. And you're going to go ahead and select listing, and you're going to set property. So now we have a set property and a nice picture of the property as well. We're going to go back to people, asking for the seller's agent and the seller themselves and their information, right? So you're going to add seller's agent. The seller's agent here is actually Kiani, so we're going to put Kiani. As you can see, we already have her as an associate, and we're going to select her. So this is where you would add the seller's information. So then it's also going to ask for the title agent, right? So then you want to go to details and answer some questions, right? So first it's going to ask you, when was the contract executed from both sides, right? So for this example, I'm going to put the 18th, which is today. And then it's going to ask, how long is the option period, right? Typically 7 days. So here I'm going to put 7 days, but this depends on your contract. So make sure you're filling this out based on your contract. And then it's going to ask, was the property built before 1978? This is so that it can determine if it should also provide a lead-based addendum in the documents, which is going to be required. But the property is not built before 1978, so no. It's not. Is the property subject to homeowners association? Yes, it is. Is the property in mud? No. Is the property in flood hazard area? No. Again, please make sure you're not talking to this case. What is the contract sales price? So in the offer that we get, for example, we get a full price offer. I'm going to put that there. What type of financing is the buyer using? Conventional third party. So you have all of these different contracts. You're going to require addendums. And here we're just going to do financial conventional third party. And then here is more questions. I like to answer all of these questions because why not, right? Is your client a corporate account? No. It's a first-time buyer. We're going to say no. The seller a licensed real estate agent? Is the seller's agent also a member of your brokerage? You want to go through these questions and answer all of them, right? Escrow number. Has the home inspection been scheduled? Has your client set up the home warranty? The reason this is important to answer, you guys, because it will give you reminders. It'll put things on your calendar, and it'll make it a lot easier for you to do the transaction. So once you have your questions answered, you're going to go ahead and click documents. So as you can see, now it's saying that all of this is required now, and that's because when we were in summary, we skipped to the contract, right? This is going to be the same as how we did it here. So the residential contract first. So we're going to select option, attach documents. Typically, when you send your contracts to get signed, it's going to include all the addendums, all the disclosures, and all of that good stuff, right? So this page is, all of it is actually not the residential sale contract, right? So what I'm going to do is add them one by one. So I know that the 1 to 4 family contract ends here, right? This is the last page of the contract. So what I'm going to do is add the pages all the way up to that last page. We're not going to add this because this is the third party financing addendum. We don't need to add this here. There's somewhere else to add this. So once you have that in, you're going to create the document, save document and exit, and now we have our contract. And then it's asking for the HOA addendum. Same thing, but it's actually attached to that document, right? So we're going to click it again, and all of it is going to upload if you don't have it separately. And I'm going to press on it, and as you can see, it's this one. It's just one page, so I'm going to add the page. Make sure you're adding the right page, and I'm going to create the document and save and quit. So what you want to do is go ahead and do it with everything that is required, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. The intermediary notice, like I said, this is an example, so I don't have one signed, but whenever it is an in-house transaction, like I said, this is Kiani's listing, so this would be an intermediary transaction. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill this in. If you are a listing agent, you have to have the IABS and listing agreements on Backagent prior to listing your property. So now that we have everything, you have everything done when you don't see anything orange up top. Everything looks good. We're going to go ahead and submit. And here it's going to ask you to create a funding request, right? So we're going to press create request. So this is talking about your commission. So we cannot send the CDA to the title company without a funding request, right? So here it's going to ask you how much is the sales commission, right? So in that contract, I originally put 3%, right? I have a little calculator here that you can do. So what we're going to do for the commission percentage, we're going to put 3% and it'll tell you exactly how much your commission will be. And then you're going to scroll down and this is where you get to payouts, right? This is where you will put the office split and all that good stuff. Our office split is 20%. 20% of this number right here is going to be 4,000. I don't delete the whole thing. $4,080. And watch where it says net pay due to agent. Once you press, boom, it already subtracts it for you, and you can see exactly how much you're going to get paid for this transaction. And let's say that you want to give, $5,000 of your commission to your buyer at closing for them to use it for their closing costs or whatever applies. What you're going to do is go to add payout and you're going to press contribution to buyer. And here you can put how much you will be contributing to the buyer, because this has to be included in the CDA. And we're also going to send a separate letter mentioning that there's going to be a contribution to buyer, and it also has to get sent to your lender as well. Or if you're contributing to a seller or anything like that, this is where you would do that. So I'm going to X out of this because we're not contributing anything to this buyer, but in case you are, that's how you do it. And then it's going to ask if you want to do table funding or standard funding. Table funding is where you get paid at closing at the title company. And this is where you want to make sure that you are submitting this 3 days prior, at least 3 days prior to your closing, so that we can send them a CDA and you can get paid there. If you don't have a CDA sent, it's going to be standard funding and they're going to send the full commission to the brokerage and then we get to cut your check. Which, again, it's not the end of the world if you don't get paid at closing, but I mean, who wants to wait, right? So then after that, you're just going to go ahead and create the funding request. I'm not going to create the funding request just because I don't want to put this in our system. This is an example. Once you create the funding request, it's going to pretty much look the same, but it'll just say it was submitted. And as you can see, the CD is now needed, and I'm going to attach the documents to that as well.